On this edition of the Booth Review, Earth, Wind, and Fire gets mentioned a number of times.
And Earth gets scorched by fire. I think you can run two slants into cover two, Fletch.
Okay, and I also think you can get a headache. But this is Tell the Truth Monday on the Booth Review.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Booth Review podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein with Big Fletch, London Fletcher. We're brought to you by Microsoft Surface, Copilot Plus PC, and I am in the Big Bear AI Command Center studio. London is joining us remotely, so we will have our Tell the Truth Monday, and there's a lot of truth to tell today, London.
There is a lot of truth to tell. Coming out of Atlanta with a loss, 2-2 wasn't our best game, but I felt like the offense did some good things, kept us competitive. But as you mentioned, this is Tell the Truth Monday, so we got to tell the truth and say, hey, let's get down to the bottom of why we lost that ball game.
Let's talk about just the emotions of losing the way that they did yesterday in Atlanta. If you're in the locker room, what are you talking about with your teammates today?
Anytime you lose a ball game, you have to obviously look at yourself first and foremost. Say, hey, what can I have done better? That's on the coaches, the players. Everybody has to kind of have that mindset first and foremost. Look at the film, be critical of yourself. Say, hey, what could I have done differently in that ball game to change the impact, change the outcome of that ball game? And that's one of the things that I really prided myself on is, especially in losses, what could I have done better? And it could have been a situation where I may have had 15 or 16 tackles in the ball game, but I might have missed one. So it's like, oh, man, if I make that one tackle, maybe that's something differently. Could I have changed the defense to put us in a better position? Stuff like that. So that's the thing that you really want to do first and foremost, be accountable to yourself, listen to the coaches, the coaching points. And was I paying close attention to the details, things like that? And that's really the mindset and conversations you need to have. But also, let's keep things in perspective. This is week 4. You're 2-2 after the first quarter. This is a 17-week season, 17-game season, I should say. So let's not feel like the sky is falling. We're disappointed, but we got to go out and play the Chargers on Sunday.
All right, I'm going to focus on the offense with you in a minute. Logan's going to join us in a little bit to kind of go through the defense, which I do think is kind of the story of what happened yesterday in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But before we get to the offense, I just want just a general overview of just defensively, when you think about what happened in Atlanta, how do things kind of collectively get better from here?
I've watched the film actually a couple times already, and it's as you see it happening in real time, you're like, man, this is awful. What's going on here? Why are we giving up so many big plays? I think first and foremost, there was a couple communication situations that need to be cleaned up between some guys on the back end. Nothing major. You don't want to have those, especially you're 4 weeks into the season and you have those communication issues. But I think the biggest deal is paying greater attention to detail. Just really harping on the small, minute things of the details within the defensive call, whether it's a leverage standpoint, whether it's eye discipline, whether it's understanding when you can go for an interception and when you have to kind of just play a little bit more safe type of defense. There's several emphasis, being better on third down. That was I thought DQ touched on that a lot yesterday about the third down defense. That was probably the most disappointing piece, especially when you consider we came into that ball game the number 1 ranked third down defense in the National Football League. That was truly our strong suit. So the big takeaway, especially late in that ball game, Penix was able to, in the Falcons, they were able to convert 3 third downs when we had got it to a one-score game late. He had to scramble on a 3rd and 4, picked up a first down, and they converted 2 more third downs on that drive before eventually scored another touchdown. But it's those things that, hey, we know we're a really good third down defense. Let's pay a little bit better attention to the details, maybe just the little small nuances that these things happen early in a football season. So I know the fans are kind of panicking. Y'all love this defense last week against the Raiders. Loved them week 1 against the Giants. hated them against the Packers, and now you're ready to get rid of everybody after the Falcons game. Just calm down, pump the brakes. Let's allow these guys to really gel as a unit collectively.
Well, some of this too, like last year was all lollipops and sunshine. And so people forget this is hard. You're not in Kansas anymore. You know, I mean, that's the reality. Like, this is hard. They are 2-2. There's an interesting thing that you brought up about the third downs, and I want to revisit with you and Logan later, which, like, they had not, this is typically low percentage anyway, but they hadn't given up a 3rd and 10 or longer a conversion yet. It was like 0 for 15 coming into it. But yesterday on 2nd and long, the Falcons converted like 5 times on a 2nd and 10 plus. So that's something I want to revisit with you, because it falls into the category of when you get them behind the sticks, you're hoping that you're going to get different outcomes.
Right.
And there's one other thing I just kind of want to talk to you about, just a general overview and just how you think about this. I think you and I both before the game were kind of talking and feeling like, look, this is a road game. They have like top tier, and in some cases they're running back, all pro level talent on that side of the ball, but they hadn't played very well to this point. And I think like expectations matter. Washington's missing a lot of people on offense. And there are 2 types of teams that when I get ready, you know, to call the games with you, that I don't like to get ready to play. One is the white hot, red hot team, right? Like we caught that with the Packers week 2, short week. The way they played week 1 heading into week 2, you knew this was going to be a very difficult matchup. You also never want to play the team that was embarrassed. And that team was embarrassed. And the whole week, they're hearing it from their fan base. They got to fire this person. They got to fire that person. They have a quarterback controversy. They fired a coach. The coordinator's coming down from the booth. Like, you knew it. It's just human nature. That's a good team with good talent, and you were going to get a different performance out of them yesterday.
Absolutely. I knew that, just having spent 16 years in NFL locker rooms, and when you have a subpar performance collectively as a player, individually, all week you're just hearing how bad you are, you need to replace this guy, what's going on. And they were hearing that all week long in Atlanta. Hey, is Raheem Morris the right guy? If they lose this ball game with Marcus Mariota coming in here, should he be fired? The offensive coordinator, he was under attack. Michael Penix was under attack. And they went out, and to the Falcons' credit, they played a phenomenal offensive game. I thought Zach Robinson did a lot of creative things. He schemed up some explosive plays. When I think about one that comes to mind is the Bijan Robinson 70-yard catch or whatever it was. That was a schemed up play where get into three tight ends in the ball game, trade personnel, 13 personnel, whatever you want to call it, and then they spreaded them all out, create a look where it's almost like a four wide receiver set, and we end up being in a man-to-man type of defense, and they created some traffic issues for Bobby. Hey, you tip your hat off to those guys. They did a great job scheming up that play, and that's oftentimes what happens, as you mentioned, when you're playing a team that's been embarrassed. We didn't play our best game defensively at all. I think the tackling wasn't what it needed to be. Bijan Robinson's an excellent running back, but there was some of the tackle stuff that has to be on us, where in terms of where you saying, hey, was I in a position to make the tackle, make the play? And a lot of times we were, but didn't make the play, didn't make the tackle. He's an elusive back. You understood that he was going to be a difficult tackle. But were we doing the fundamentals the way they needed to be done? And I think collectively in yesterday's ball game, we didn't play sound fundamental football enough to win that ball game. Wasn't disciplined enough like we needed to, and we had some small attention to detail things that we didn't execute at a high enough level, especially on the road, to win that ball game.
All right, so we'll revisit all the defense with Logan in a little bit. Let's get into the offense here a little bit. It's been an interesting hand that Cliff Kingsbury's been dealt the last couple of weeks because of all the injuries. Jaden Daniels didn't play the last 2 weeks, so it's Marcus Mariota, who I thought played very well, maybe with the exception of one, interception, played very well again. They had made changes on the offensive line. Noah Brown's out, John Bates is out, Austin Eckler's out. Now Terry McLaurin is out, I'll tell you what, 27 is a heck of a number for that group to put up almost 70 in 2 weeks collectively as a group. I will say this, for being dealt a very difficult hand, Cliff and company and all those players played it very well, including yesterday, and I don't want it to be undersold in what happened. We'll revisit the defense, which I think is the story, but I think we need to give Cliff and the offense some credit here for having half of the starters out there and putting up the numbers that they put up.
I agree. I thought once the offense kind of settled in after the first series or two, after the first series, I mean, heck, before you knew it, they were down 10-0. But I thought they settled in. They really got to the run game. Kind of, I was talking a lot on the broadcast about wanting to come more downhill against this that Falcons defense, running some more counters, gap schemes because of those fast guys on that defense going lateral was probably, maybe not the best way to attack them from a run game standpoint. Rodriguez, he breaks off the big 49-yard run. They overcame a lot of penalties too. I think one situation, we were 1st and 30, overcame that and was able to get points out of that drive. So collectively as an offense, yeah, you're going to be disappointed in some of the penalties. I thought Cliff did a really nice job of scheming up some explosive plays, but we had a couple negated by a penalty. He schemed up a big explosive play to Jalen Lane that Senate unfortunately had the penalty on.
Yep.
There was another couple other instances that happened where just penalties just kind of stalled us out a little bit. But collectively, when you look at what the offense was able to produce, you mentioned the 27 points. I think that was outstanding job by them. And they'll look at the film and even be disappointed with the 27 points because they'll say, man, there were actually more points to be had in that ball game if we just, hey, small detail here, correction here, stuff like that. If we can just hold this block a little bit longer. I think about there was a 3rd and 7. Zach Ertz wins, but there was a little bit of pressure in Mariota's face. Had to get the ball a little bit high. It's off target. That puts us first down in the low red zone. Instead, we had to kick a field goal. So it's stuff like that they're going to go back, look at the points, look at that game and say, man, we put up 27, but we could have put up probably 40 if we clean up a few more things here and there.
There's been and Logan talks about this a lot too. There's been a misconception with Cliff that it's all air raid and they're going to throw the ball a million times. And that's not been the crux, I think, of his offense, or really the one here. Going into the game yesterday, only Baltimore had as many 8+ 200+ collective rush yard days as Washington. Since the start of 2024, they had 2 of them already this year, and they were close to, I think, if they weren't playing from behind the whole time, they might have been able to kind of get to that number again. They had 3 players yesterday with over 6 yards a carry. 3, including Mariota's one of them, and one was a long scramble on that 1st and 30 that you referenced. He got the 15, 16 yards on that one scramble that got the 3rd down. But there's 2 other running backs averaging over 6 yards a carry. The team combined averaged 7 yards per rush. And frankly, with the receivers that this team was missing yesterday, the fact that they were able to be that effective against a defense that had to assume that this was going to be a run-heavy team yesterday is a mark of they are very, very, very well schemed.
Very, very well schemed. They block really good on the next level too. As my dog starts to bark, the dog wanted us to run the ball more too. Yeah. Let me get this dog under control really quick. Hold on, Bram. Yeah, no, they very well schemed, as you mentioned. I thought they got some really nice blockings on the second level, being able to seal on that Rodriguez run was I think it was Andrew Wiley had a really nice second level block. Ben Center had a nice block to seal and help create a crease for Rodriguez on the run. Got a nice block downfield. Think about Deebo and Rodriguez, he broke a tackle too. So those are the types of things that these backs were able to do. Bill Krosky-Merritt, he had some nice runs. So as a run team, Atlanta had to say, hey, we expect Washington to come in here and try to run the football against us, and they still couldn't effectively stop us from running the football. And even with us rushing for 140 something, 447 or something like that.
147, yeah.
Yeah, we still could have probably rushed for a little bit more yards if you, as you mentioned, the game was a little bit closer. You didn't have to abandon it as much and throw the football a little bit more than probably you wanted to. But to even pass the ball as well as we did against the number one ranked pass defense in the league, to be able to create some plays, some explosives. I know Mariota, he'd love to have that interception back, the one that he ended up throwing. But all in all, man, there's a lot to kind of take from that ball game from a positive standpoint when you look at the offense.
Yeah, like the rushing yards are, to me, really stand out too. Here's a team that was playing from behind early. They only had the ball for 2+ minutes of the first quarter because Atlanta had a couple of really long drives. Washington had a 3-and-out start. So they had the ball for the bulk. I remember reading the stat at halftime that they'd only run 20-something plays. Like they'd barely really run a lot of plays. And to end up with that many rush yards with the other team knowing that this is going to be your focus, I agree, is a good sign moving forward that you have answers when you need it. You don't have to extend yourself in a way that makes you uncomfortable. And they're doing it with a variety of different players. Like I said, it's 3 different players at 6+ yards a carry, all of them with very different styles. Mariota is not Rodriguez, is not Krosky Merritt. So it's very interesting to watch how they're able to kind of utilize all of the parts and get a collective that puts a result like that.
Hey, I was on the sideline pregame with and I happened to be talking to Evan Washburn, who's a sideline reporter for CBS, who did the game yesterday. And Bill walked by, and I guess he did an interview with Bill during the week, and they finally introduced themselves, face to face. And Evan was calling it. He's like, "I got a nickname. I'm calling you guys Earth, Wind, and Fire." And so I don't know if he even got a chance to say it on the TV broadcast or not. And he was calling. I'm trying to remember who he called Bill. I can't remember if he was the. I think he might have been the fire part of the group, and maybe Rodriguez was the earth, because a little bit more steady, powered back, and he had McNichols as the wind part of it, and Bill's like, "What's the wind part?" He's like, "Because he's fast," stuff like that. So I think Bill wanted to be wind a little bit, just how they were. I think he wanted to be called the wind part of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I think that's our booth. I think Logan is Earth, I'm Wind, and you are Fire. I actually think we steal it for us.
Yeah. But no, as you mentioned, though, those guys did a really nice job running the football. There was they had to do some things in pass protection as well. And there are things that you're going to continue to get better at. After every ball game, win or lose, you're going to be critical of yourself, especially in losses.
Yeah.
You're going to say, hey, Rodriguez may be like, man, if I only could have got to the end zone. Well, man, you did it. You had a hell of a run on that 49-yard run.
He did.
You just always are looking at how can you improve the things you can do better, whether with the ball, without the ball in your hands. And that's the way it is, should be. That's the National Football League.
So, Earth, Wind, and Fire has had a run here. It's made it to our team. The week before, Jenna Lane, who covers the Buccaneers for ESPN, put the Earth, Wind, and Fire September soundtrack underneath Aaron Glenn doing that dance when the Jets had their special teams play a week ago against Tampa Bay, because it happened on the 21st of September, which is one of the famous lyrics of the song September from Earth, Wind, and Fire. So what a comeback for the 70s band Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah.
No, the Grammys just did a tribute to Earth, Wind, and Fire within, it had to be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Maybe when I said, it might have been last Sunday.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was freaking amazing. Yeah, it's definitely worth going to see.
So talking about comebacks, Marcus Mariota made his first start last week against the Raiders for Washington. The previous start he had was in Atlanta, 2022. We were talking to Wes Durham, the voice of the Falcons, before the game. He was wondering what the reception would be. The perception among the fan base of Mariota is not very good. The quarterback series that was done, that was put out post the season where he was one of the profiled quarterbacks, painted him as someone who had quit on that team. And no one really knows exactly what was going on at the end of that, but that's how it kind of was painted. And then so Mariota's had this kind of resurgence of his career. He went to Philadelphia as a backup, then of course has come here. He's been outstanding, really, in the limited appearances he had a year ago, and now 2 starts the past couple of weeks. Yesterday it was 16 of 27, 156 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 20 rush yards, did have a pick. The 4th down throw to Deebo Samuel really saved the game at the time for them, where they went for it on that. It was a perfect dime to keep them in the game there. I was talking to Dan Quinn last week about him because he had mentioned, and Cliff had mentioned this, that not only is this a really good fit offensively for them, and Cliff had talked about how he'd wanted to work with Mariota in the past because he thought the offense would really work for him and his talent and skill set would fit for it. But Quinn had talked about, he'd been openly saying the players are going to really support him in this role because he's been so supportive of them throughout this, and told a story that I'd like to share here that I couldn't do the other day because the game flow just didn't allow for it to happen, but I had hoped to share it. But last December, his wife and he had a son. And so, of course, he flew home to be with the child. But he came back early, and Dan Quinn was telling me that he was running through 2-minute scenarios with the coaching staff, and lo and behold, he's playing. It was the last game of the year against the Cowboys where they made a decision. So here he was in the midst of this kind of family time. Jaden Daniels isn't hurt, so they're not, there's no reason not to believe that he has to be back. But he came back, showed the effort. He's been really resilient in his career. He has been extremely supportive of everybody around him, and he's been rewarded for that. And honestly, the last couple of games, as a quote-unquote backup quarterback, Washington couldn't ask for really much better than what they've gotten out of him.
I don't know anybody who's met Marcus, especially since he's been in Washington, and not been just impressed with him. I can remember when I met him last year, and just the humility that he has, that he displays, and you're just man, he's perfect. Cliff talked about him being perfect for the offense, and offense being perfect for him, but he's also perfect for the locker room and especially the quarterback room. When you think about him being a guy who's a veteran quarterback and go out and get it done, yeah, he's in the backup role and he understands that, but he's so supportive of not just the players, but Jaden and how he's able to. He's a guy who's walked the same path as Jaden has. Heisman Trophy winner, number 2 overall draft pick, had to be a starter early in his career. So he can share with him a lot of his story that nobody else, it's very few people that can share that same type of story and journey that him and Jaden share together. And his knowledge of being a quarterback and understanding, hey, giving Jaden, hey, this is what I see from the sideline standpoint. And then when he's called upon to go out and produce, he's produced at a high level.
Yeah. And we'll find out this week about Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn is going to speak later today as we're taping this. By Wednesday, I think we'll have a better idea, but I think the hope is that he is going to return. But clearly they're in good hands with Mariota if necessary. And so that's been a really good sign here. One other player I want to talk about on offense with you, I think it was signaled early. I think we called it out on the opening kickoff when Deebo Samuel was not back to field it. It was pretty clear that he was going to have an expanded role on the offense, and that makes a lot of sense. Terry McLaurin's out. Noah Brown's out. You got to rely on some people, and Deebo's the most reliable veteran that's going to be walking out there to try to extend the passing game. They still, in the end, had a big kickoff return anyway. They had walked in with the number 1 kickoff return team in the NFL. But Deebo, 6 catches, 72 yards, another touchdown, key catch on a 4th down, key catch on a conversion earlier on the near sideline for us as well. 3 touchdowns in 4 games for them. He's kind of been everything I think they had hoped for when they acquired him as well.
Probably more, especially as a receiver. And I'm talking about a true route running receiver. The touchdown catch was a great route run by him. The pass interference late in that game as well that he didn't catch, but if the guy doesn't interfere with him, he's going to probably have another big explosive catch. I was impressed with his ability to separate at the top of his routes and also make touch. There was a catch, and I'm thinking you're talking about the same catch where he caught it on the sideline. Great catch. Like and was able to get his feet down in bounds. So just because this was early in the game, Raheem Morris was thinking about potentially challenging that catch, but at the review, they was like, man, he didn't challenge it, but after they saw the TV copy, the Falcons coaching staff had to say, no, he caught that ball. But Deebo did an excellent job. There was a couple, I'm sure they had more plays designed to get him the ball, but just with the flow of the game, sometimes, or he may have been the initial primary guy and maybe had to, based on the coverage or some other things, Marcus may have had to go to a different guy. But he's been outstanding.
Yeah, he has. I mean, most of the role here offensively, at least early, he's either getting a couple of carries, one of them ended up being a touchdown in week 1, or it's a lot of underneath crossing patterns. I wasn't surprised yesterday, based on who was missing out of the lineup, that there was a little more downfield for him. He's capable of that. He did it in San Francisco. He is a utility knife, and they're finding ways to utilize him. And obviously, based on need, it's been necessitated. And it was signaled early. The second he didn't walk out there for that opening kickoff, I'm like, he's got a huge role here today.
I mean, that's just his role was going to be too valuable. You knew that. You just knew that. Couldn't have it with given our issues at receivers, the injuries that we had. No Terry. He just knew he was going to be his role on the offensive side of the ball was going to be too valuable to also add that element of it. I would have loved to. It would have been interesting. You get late in the game and maybe we tie the ball game up and there's a late kickoff return that you got to have a big return, or maybe you're down 3 points or whatever. I would have loved. It would have been interesting to see if he was the one who tried it out there. Like, okay, this is a critical one. I'm gonna go out here and return this kickoff. Like you'll see some guy. I could think of Santana Moss, who wasn't the primary punt returner. We're playing Detroit. Need to have a play. He goes back, returns the kick or returns the punt for a touchdown. So I'm sure they probably had that. Hey, in a guy to have a situation, Deebo, you're gonna be the guy back there returning this kickoff.
All right, let's get Logan Paulsen in here. Paulsen from the Pine, and while he's making his way into the studio, let's just stay on special teams just for a moment, London. Luke McCaffrey has a 58-yard kickoff return. The team walked in number 1 kickoff return average in the NFL. And then you and I loved the Larry Izzo pulling the referee aside to make sure that he understood there was an illegal formation on a kickoff return that was set up by the Falcons that caused the penalty. Special teams again, and then Matt Gay, solid yesterday. They put a lot of trust into him. He was solid yesterday. Yes. Needed him. He came through. The special teams yesterday, I think, had a good day as well.
The special teams had a really good day. Some of the coverage unit, man, there was some hitting going on out there. I know Logan and I, we were talking about it, and you as well. Some of the collisions that took place on those coverages, and it seemed like every time you turn around, somebody was needing to be seen by the medical staff. But Matt Gay had a really good day kicking the football, made the 52-yarder and some other clutch field goals. And I'm sure that was great for his confidence. And DQ and Larry Izzo expressing publicly their confidence in him and belief in him. Yeah, it was the whole Larry Izzo stuff. That's something obviously they've seen on film. He saw it before the ball was even kicked.
Yeah.
Hey, this is illegal formation, pointing it out, and they threw that penalty flag on
well, the best part of it is Logan's here. The referee threw the flag, and then Izzo basically told him, go pick it up because it hasn't happened yet. And what was pointing at it, and he's like, it's not a penalty until the ball's kicked because they're only in illegal formation until the ball's kicked. Then it was kicked, and it immediately came out. That was one of my favorite moments of the game. It was really great.
It's good when your coaches know the rules,
Yeah.
Well, the fact, I don't know if you saw it, Logan. Like, he literally threw his flag out and
well, I couldn't see it because I was standing, but I heard you guys talking about it. Like you guys were talking, like you were narrating the whole scenario.
Yeah.
Well, the flag's out. Pick the flag up. Oh, the flag's out again.
Well, at first, the flag came out. It almost looked like it was a mistake. Like he had his hand in his back pocket and accidentally. Then he ran and picked it up. I think Izzo told him it's not a penalty yet. It's about to be. and then waited for the kickoff and then made him throw the flag again. It was actually pretty good.
That's funny. That's good.
All right, let's not bury the lead. Logan wants to talk about the defense too.
Do I want to talk about it?
Everybody wants to talk about the defense too.
Where's the hat?
Oh, it's only for wins, man. Only for wins. That's only for wins.
All right.
We take this more seriously.
Like the belt only comes out for wins too.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, you have any specific questions about the defense?
Go ahead.
Just going to go over.
I think there's a lot to talk about here.
So I think there's like this perception, and Fletch, you can like disagree with me if you want, but like that it's all the explosive plays that they gave up over the course of the game. And to me, when I went back and watched the All-22, yes, there were explosive plays, there were chunk plays, no doubt. But I think the thing that really kind of eroded the defense was the 5-yard gain on first down.
Yes.
Here's the choice route on 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 5 that gets completed to, Drake London or Bijan Robinson. And it wasn't like, obviously it sticks out. It's glaring, like the completion of Drake London on the sideline and the big completion of Bijan Robinson. And those are huge plays, obviously. But I think it was the other stuff, like, watching the outside zone stuff back, Fletch, like watching how close some of those runs were, where we get Kinlaw kind of, chin in the guard. He's trying to play across his face, but at the last second kind of peeks back door because Bijan set it up. The double team just sinks a little bit, gets a piece of Bobby Wagner at the second level, and Bijan just did such a good job of like hunting and pecking, falling forward for 5. And like, there wasn't a ton of explosive runs in the game. There were a couple. I think there was one, down in the red zone for his touchdown or whatever.
But actually, the Atlanta rush average was about under 4 yards a carry. And believe it or not, I know people don't think of it that way, but it was.
But I think when you look at it and you say, like, man, like if you could be a little bit more efficient versus that outside zone run scheme, like you get more 2nd and 10s. I think Joe Witt Jr. could be more aggressive from a pressure package. I also felt like Joe Witt Jr. to a certain extent like felt the loss of Will Harris. I think people sleep on what he does from a communication standpoint, how he again, the communication, the physicality, the tackling, the man coverage ability on the tight end, and kind of overcoming that loss, I think, was a big deal for him. But ultimately, I came away thinking, man, it's closer than it is far away, even though that doesn't make it any less frustrating to kind of watch that game back on the All-22.
But I will say this, and because people are going to hear closer than it is far away, I'll read you the numbers of all of their stars because it wasn't one person, right? So it's one thing when, Bijan Robinson went off. Well, he's an all-pro running back and maybe the best running back in the NFL.
So before you go. So one of the things going in, and I talked to Fletch about it pregame, like he was the guy that I was most concerned about because he's the toughest guy in the league, in my opinion, to match up with. He's like the toughest player. He is what Christian McCaffrey was 5 years ago, right? Where he could win versus a linebacker, he could win versus a safety. Shoot, in some instances, I don't mind him in a corner situation.
And we've seen him 3 years in a row. Outside of their division teams, we're the ones that have seen every year. He gets better and better and better and better.
And so, like, that to me is not surprising. Like, they're going to find ways to have an explosive opportunity to him. Because again, like, it's the same thing you run into when you have a good tight end. You're going to draw a bad coverage matchup. Like, you're going to get, like, if I'm Kyle Pitts or if I'm Bijan Robinson, I'm going to get Bobby Wagner. I'm going to get Frankie Louvu. And those guys are good football players, but show me a linebacker in the NFL, Fletch, I'll wait, if that can cover him one-on-one. I don't think there is one. Maybe Warner up in San Francisco, but he's going to get his explosive plays. I think the other players are a little bit more surprising, but we can talk about them. But I just had to get that off my chest about Bijan Robinson. Like, he was going to have these opportunities. He's had opportunities since week 1 until now. So, like, it doesn't surprise me. It's just how the offense was able to kind of flower with these other players.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about London, about Bijan? Because, like, I'm with Logan here. I think he might be the best running back in the NFL going right now. And guess what? Those people are hard to stop. So you want to talk about Bijan for a moment?
What they did yesterday that they hadn't showed a whole lot of is they really utilized him in the third down receiving game. They had a great scheme change where they put the tight end as the blocking back in case we brought pressure, and they flexed him out basically like as a wide receiver. He had a bunch of different option routes, things like that, and sometimes it might have been against his own coverage, and you're having they're high low on you, so you want him to throw the shorter route so you don't give up the big throw, and his elusiveness, being able to make that catch and pick up some key third downs. I think really that's where he probably made the most hay. And I'm taking that 75 yard or whatever it was. I can't even remember how many yards that darn play was. The pass reception, the big one.
Yeah.
But there was a bunch of other plays that was just as backbreaking because they happened on third down, like a 3rd and 5 situation, 3rd and 6 situation where you think you're going to get off the field. And as I mentioned earlier, we have been the number 1 ranked third down defense, and they were able to convert at over a 50% clip on third downs. And that's where I think you'll probably go back if you're Joe Witt and say, hey, man, maybe we should have did some different things from a schematic standpoint, not even schematic standpoint, just like, okay, this is kind of like, okay, different answers to what the Falcons were doing. And again, attention to details, a little bit better, whether it's from a leverage standpoint, just understanding situations down the distance, all those types of things. Those are things that are the difference between you winning on the third down, losing on the third down. Logan, you mentioned the first down plays against the outside zones. Hey, stand in your gap a little bit longer. Don't let Bijan kind of dip in, get you to get out of your gap. Now you allow those linemen to get angles on you, stuff like that. So those are the things when I talk about being a little bit greater attention to detail, a little bit more discipline, especially when you got a special back, because they will become their own blocker. You mentioned weaving and dipping and dodging and stuff like that. He was able to set up a lot of his blocks because of his ability to get bounce in and out.
Yeah, and I'm really glad about the third down stuff because I think this team is kind of like, I can't think of a better word, but like the perfect third down team. And what I mean by that is they got a bunch of guys who can win one-on-one matchups consistently. Like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson are all guys you feel really good are going to draw really, really good matchups. And yes. I think the way they called this game like lends itself to that. So like their third down stuff, they basically ran a version of the same play like 10 times, 9.5, right? I'm going to give a half because they kind of ran a half.
Yep, like absolutely. Yep.
So they ran choice or CO. So choice is like the inside receiver gets to run in, out, or sit down versus zone, and then the outside guy runs a corner. And a CO, it's a mandatory out by that guy running the choice. They ran that concept on repeat, right? And it's just because you have guys who can run the choice. Drake London's a great choice runner. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Reed in that capacity. He reads it well. He makes good decisions. He can win versus man coverage. Bijan Robinson had a couple. Kyle Pitts had a couple. Like a couple of Kyle Pitts' big completions are on the choice route where he draws a good leverage matchup on a guy breaking down on the choice route and they hit him in the corner over top. So it wasn't like this crazy nuanced thing, but you got guys who can.
Here's the thing that I would say too, where there's also the disappointment and on the third down stuff, and I would say even consistently throughout the day, the pass rush was never really didn't really affect Penix. So on these choice routes, there's times where he's waiting to see which way the back of the receiver is going to break, but because he was so comfortable in the pocket, we didn't get him off his spot enough, didn't get him uncomfortable. He didn't feel enough pressure from a pass rush standpoint. So rushing coverage, we talk so much about rushing coverage working together. It wasn't to the point and to the level that it needed to be against an offense with so many skilled receivers, skilled guys that can go out and win one-on-one matchups and man versus man. And also you got guys who know how to find open lane, open holes in zones.
Yeah, and like again to piggyback on that pass rush point, like you talked about, we haven't talked about Drake London yet, who had a really good day. Most of his stuff has kind of been what it's been, like near the line of scrimmage,
right?
Except for that big out and up, and on that out and up, like Kyle Penix is hitch, throw. It's a 3 hitch thing, right? And so when I look at that film, I'm kind of like, he's in a good position to make the play here on the out, right? Which is on the second hitch. So if I'm the DB, I'm thinking the ball has got to be out. The rush has to get home. And again, that's just a really good example of when the things that Fletch is talking about, when the rush doesn't connect fully with the coverage, you run into some of these issues in the back end where the corners are going to be more stressed, zones are more stressed. We saw that a little bit against Las Vegas last week where the rush doesn't quite get home. And I think we've had a pretty consistent pass rush, especially when we're blitzing, but when it doesn't hit zone stretch, man coverage pitch principle stretch, and I don't care how good you are in coverage, you're not going to win that one-on-one matchup. So I think that's something that I would just point to is just like, for whatever reason, it didn't seem to line up in a way that's going to be effective. Yeah. And, football is the ultimate team game. Like, you need both sides of that coin to work really, really well to execute the defense the way it needs to be executed.
I want to go back to one of the first things you said, and it focuses on Bijan a little bit, which is, I kind of felt this way going in. Atlanta's 1 or 2 in 4+ yards on first down. That's the Bijan effect, right? That he's just tough to stop, and he puts them in really good situations. Oddly, over the last few weeks or the first few weeks of the season, Atlanta wasn't taking advantage of that. They were one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. They weren't finishing drives, and only they can answer what in the world was going on when they're in second and manageable on every set of downs, right? I felt like coming in, if we could just, because the Washington rush defense had been improved, starting running backs were averaging under 4 yards a carry. They're not him, obviously, but they're different. If these were 2-3 yard gains, not 4 or 5 yard gains, you could potentially induce more passing out of them. And that ended up not mattering. So both things were actually happening yesterday. To your point, when they did get into second and manageable, took advantage of it. But on a number of occasions, 2nd and 12 plus, 5 times this happened. They converted on 4 of them, and a 5th got a conversion because of a defensive holding. So on both sides of it, Washington did not have an answer for it.
Yeah, and I do think there's some context associated with that too. Like, just for example, like, let's take the first one on this sheet. It's a 2nd and 17. They get 14 yards. They're in Tampa 2, the Washington Commanders, and they run basically Lions. So like both slants weak and some type of spot concept to the offensive left. So like, think sit, corner type deal, and then 2 slants to the offensive right. In cover 2, like, that's the call you want, is 2 slants, right? Drake London is an excellent slant runner. That inside slant's going to pull that hook player away. The outside slant runner's going to inside release on the cover 2 player, who's a flat player, and then going to wash inside. There's nobody for that inside hook player to pass the ball off to because it's Tampa 2. The mic's dropping to the middle third. So if I'm an offensive quarter, I'm like, yeah, man, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. It's third. What is it? It's 2nd and 17. I had a slant. Let's say we get 10 yards on a slant, him falling forward. It's 3rd and 7. We're okay. Drake London's a beast. He's a big dude. It ends up being a more explosive play. And again, like, that's good offensive play calling, and that's a little bit of it.
So Logan, just so that cover 2, and I know we rarely talk scheme, get real in detail.
Yeah.
Actually, I played so much cover 2 in my life. You are praying for slants versus cover 2 if you understand how to play it, especially in that situation. It's this is a coaching point that they'll get to. You run those double slants. Hey, hook player, you let that first slant go to the backside player. Now I'm breaking on that outside slant. So that's either a collision or it's an interception. Now, these are attention to detail type things that, hey, this happened. Now let's correct it so moving forward we won't have these situations again. So no, you shouldn't be getting 10 yards on the slant.
But what I'm saying,
Fletch, you should be getting 5 yards of the headache.
So what I'm saying is based on the formation, and because it's Tampa 2, the Mike is the thirds player, right? So the Sam. So hold up.
I'm talking about the hook player. Yeah,
so the Sam has to push to the 3 receiver side, right? So if the hook player, the way we always coach line, like, which is the two slants, is that you run through the inside shoulder of the hook player. If the hook player vacates, you stay vertical and basically run a seam, and the quarterback will drill you on the ball. So like, that's where, to me, like, that concept feels right, because that side is in conflict if I run my routes correctly. And Drake London, again, versus Minnesota, they ran the same concept on 2nd and long.
That should be a headache, Logan.
But I'm saying, how do you get there, Fletch? You can't get there. I know you're not Superman. You got to drop to middle third, and you're going to give the guy a headache? Come on, man.
Listen, if you're a hook player, you're responsible for 2 yards outside the number, whatever the case may be. That first slant, that inside slant, the slot, he's not your guy. Especially if you're reading the quarterback. You're looking at that outside. You're looking at the release of the outside, the number 1 receiver. He runs a slant. That's an interception, a headache, or incompletion. And he's going to get depth if it doesn't.
I guess what I'm saying is if you push through to the slant, the seam's going to catch the ball. So to me, it's a good.
What's seam?
So it's an inside slant, Fletch.
You got two slants.
No. But so the
Where's
way,
the seam?
so let's listen to what I'm talking about, Fletch. So the inside slant. So the outside slants run the slant. The inside slant, like on a line concept. Inside slant. I'm not taking it like a slant, like where I'm running at a 45-degree angle. All I'm doing is running through the hook player's inside shoulder. So the second the hook player attaches to me, I've done my job. We can throw the outside slant. If that player pushes through and the outside shoulder widens,
that's not how that was run yesterday.
Dude, check it out, Fletch. Check out the all 22, baby. Check it out. Offensive players. We got the answers versus cover 2 apparently.
I watched this. This is Tampa 2. Dream, you want double slants against cover 2. You are going to knock that number 1 receiver out. Interception or knock him out.
I'm just telling you, the way we run it, man, we're going to get completion.
I'm not sure.
You're giving me your offensive perspective.
We're giving out the belt this week. I don't know to who, you or him. I haven't decided
I'm giving
yet.
you my defensive perspective of playing that scheme for 16 years. I'm just telling you. I know what you want to do from an offense standpoint. I'm telling you how we're coached to do it from a defensive perspective. You're going to squeeze that.
I'm not going to argue with Leonard Fletcher.
Squeeze that at the corner, and you're going to vice that. That should be a headache. It should not be a 10-yard game. I'm sorry.
All right, let me ask a global question again, okay? And London, I want you to answer this.
Now you deal with that, Jason.
Let me ask the global question here, okay? Because people are gonna look at the numbers today, and they're gonna go, all right, Bijan Robinson had a huge day. It was actually career high, 180 something yards. In total, 4 through the air, 106, especially including the big one. Michael Penix, career high day, 20 of 26, 313, 2 touchdowns, an interception, high quarterback rating. Drake London, by far best of the season, 8 for 110. He was averaging 53, had his first touchdown catch of the season. Kyle Pitts, 5 receptions, 70 yards, touchdown. I think it's one thing when you hear, well, one guy had this humongous day and he's an all-pro player, and what are you going to do? Sometimes they have days like that. Bijan Robinson might be the best running back in the NFL. It was everybody, London. I mean, it was everybody. You can't really point to, they found ways for all of their key players to contribute. So how are you kind of thinking about that today?
Everybody has playmakers, man. You have to harp on the details. Especially defensively, just offensively, defensively. A lot of times, Logan, you'll attest to this. A lot of times, the difference between a play being successful and unsuccessful or not as successful as it could be, it might be a small, minute detail of whether it's, when I say minute detail, just making sure you have your proper leverage, maintain your proper leverage, understanding what the weakness is of defense. If I'm supposed to stay outside leverage, stay outside leverage. If they beat me on the in-breaking route, you just take your hat off and say, hey, you beat me. But don't get beat to what should be your strength of that defense. If it's certain calls, you're going to have a leverage. Every call has a certain leverage that you're supposed to play. Eye discipline. Hey, whether it's knowing when you can jump a certain route, when you can't jump a certain route, when you need to play tighter from a down and distance standpoint, whether it's a certain situation of football, all these things come into play that are the difference between you winning a down, losing a down, getting off the field, or allowing that team to extend a drive from a defense standpoint or from an offense standpoint. Hey, making sure it might be your lineman standpoint, might be the depth of a certain route to just draw the attention of a hook defender or a zone defender or whatever to open up a in-breaking route. Things like that. Those are the things that you really have to harp on and hone into even more. And it's in wins and losses. It's just more glaring when you lose a ball game.
No, I think that's right. I mean, ultimately, that's what you come back to is what's the simplest thing we can do to make a big correction? And a lot of it, I understand the run game really well. Coverages sometimes, you've got some type of match principle on the backside. It looks like it's cover 3. I don't know exactly the details, but when you look at just as a run game, as a microcosm of the whole defense, for example, it's like your Like, what is your leverage on the block? Like, where should your hat be in relation to this blocker?
Yep.
Where am I trying to force
absolutely.
the football? And I see guys, as you watch the course of the game, it's not guys aren't trying. It's in some cases they're over trying. They're not playing within the context of the defense, and it leads to this 5-yard gain, 12-yard gain, as opposed to being a tackle for loss. And it's again, focusing on, like, I had a coach tell me one time, like, sometimes when you get out there and things are going really fast, you're like, what do I need to do to get it right? But it shouldn't be that. It's like, I know what it is. I need to shrink my aiming point, shrink my focus on the details, and it gets you there. And so it's interesting, like talking about the Drake London statistics, like, what was it, a 45-yard completion that he had on the out and up? Like, you take that out, and he's like right at his normal average for the week.
7 for about 50.
Yeah, 7 for about 50. And so that's where, like, he did what he did prior to this, plus an explosive play that we just talked about where the rush and the coverage is lined up.
On the double move.
Yeah, and we're talking about, Kyle Pitts, and I think I talked to Fletcher about this pregame. Like, I felt like he was coming along and looking good.
Yeah.
But some of those are literally, like, some of them are him beating man coverage, and he's going to win those. Some of those are also just communication errors of new guys working together in defense. So going back to Fletcher's point,
the very first catch he had was a communication, between the young guy and another safety. So that's just them communication that you can get corrected.
So going back to the Fletcher's original point, it's like, how can I be on every detail in the run game? How can I make sure this communication is clean in the pass game? Because they're, like we just talked about, they're going to get theirs. Like, they're a good football team. They got good athletes. They've got a pretty solid offensive line up front. Like, they're going to make plays. But how do I mitigate the plays that they do make? How do I rally to a tackle? Like, on Bijan Robinson's touchdown, like, there's a free hitter on the hole who's trying to play the ball.
That's right.
It's like, let's make the tackle. Let's go back to the thing we did when we were in Pop Warner.
They had Algier in the backfield. He scored a touchdown as well.
And so I look at some of that stuff, and those are the things that take you from, man, that's a pretty solid defensive performance, to the conversation we're having now, which is a lot more frustrating.
Yeah, and this was really the first game.
Absolutely.
The first game where the team had multiple opportunities at turnovers. The ball didn't bounce their way a few times. They did get one takeaway finally. We waited a month for it, but there was an early fumble by Bijan that Penix happened to be in the right place at the right time, was able to get it back. The ball was out for both teams a number of times in the first half, but there was opportunities here for turnovers, and that's the quickest way, I think, to change momentum, too. It did not happen. And there's one other play I just kind of want to bring up, because I want to laud Jeremy Reeves for the hustle on it, but it's a momentum play, too. When Bijan Robinson caught that pass out of the backfield, was streaking down the sideline, I didn't think anybody could catch him. He was gone, right? Reeves sprinted 50, 60 yards the opposite direction and caught him inside the 10. This is the moment, momentum-wise. I think if the defense stands up, stops him, and holds him to 3, it's a huge, huge, huge moment in the game. The very next play is a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments, like, I felt it like, we're going to look back on this, that Jeremy Reeves saved the game if they hold him to 3 here, but they didn't. And they just could never really find defensively the momentum. Even when they had these, like, I know that was a terrible play and a big chunk play, but Reeves saved what looked like a surefire touchdown on a hustle play. Unfortunately, they couldn't back it up with a stop in the red zone.
Yeah, and as a fan of football, like, I love that play. Fletch, like, I got, like, that. Those are the plays that you, like, when you're watching games that you love to watch, is Jeremy Reeves making that play.
It's the one we go back to and go, that saved the game.
Right, but
he did that.
But I think the thing is, like, then that's the first piece, right? You took a bad play, you saved it, you gave the defense an opportunity in a goal-to-go situation to kind of make a stand. They got to make a play, right?
That's right.
And you look at some of the details on that next play. Like, that's a play that Green Bay ran against us, right? You know what I'm saying? In terms of, like, we're kind of slamming the tight end, the safety's in run conflict, he's flipping the inside gap off the play action flag, the tight ends to the flat. Like, those are things that I think, again, to Fletcher's point, how detailed can I be with my eyes? How can I study film and watch to make sure that I'm in the right position, that I've seen this before? And so I think those are things where it's like, yes, the Reeves play was tremendous. Like, love that play by him, but it needs to set up 3 subsequent plays.
That's right.
That allowed the defense to finish that.
And this is where that field goal feels terrible for Atlanta if it ends up happening, and hopefully flips the momentum for everybody. It's a flip the momentum moment. Unfortunately, 30 seconds later, they're walking in the end zone anyway.
Yeah, that play right there, I know it didn't turn out where we end up stopping them, but that's a play that you hold you show the hustle part of it the rest of the year. Like, this is who we can be, and you defend Dick LeBeau, who was a Hall of Fame, he's a Hall of Famer as a player, could go in the Hall of Fame as a defense coordinator, one of the greatest defensive coordinators, greatest defensive mind I've ever been around. He talked always about defending every blade of grass. And basically what he's saying is, until they cross our end zone, I don't care if it's the 1 millimeter yard line or whatever the case may be. We're going to defend every blade of grass. And that hustle play that Jeremy Reeves had put us in position to, this was an explosive play, but now let's see if we can hold them to a field goal. And, we don't want to give up any points, but at least we're holding to 3 as opposed to 7. And to your point, Atlanta, they did a nice job scheming up some plays. And there'll be things where you might say, hey, let's all right, this is the tweak we'll make so we don't have these type of conflicts, things like that. So there's so much things that you can do that you'll, from a deep saying, okay, what can we do differently? And offense as well. Hey, all right, this block may be a little bit better against this type of front. So there'll be tweaks to improve in all those areas.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that I take away is like, was it clean? Was it pretty? No. But the great thing about the league, the worst thing and the greatest thing about the NFL is that we get an opportunity to get right today. You know what I'm saying? We get an opportunity as a team to go make those corrections and watch that film and get better and say, man, like this isn't who we want to be. This isn't who I want to be as a player. And I don't have to wait 6 months for the next game. I just have to wait a week. We get to go to LA, play a really good football team and test our mettle and make sure we get the corrections made, right? So in some ways, like it feels like, oh my gosh, there's so much to correct. But on some of the stuff we're talking about little detailed stuff that can get corrected in a practice, in a meeting. And I think like that's the thing as a player, as an analyst, as a fan that I get super excited about. I'm like, yeah, this was gross. But ultimately, like the great thing is we get a chance to prove everybody wrong here in 6 days, which is the thing that is really cool about the league.
Yeah, listen, things change really quickly. I mean, after that game against Green Bay, would you have pictured them 0-1 in their next 2 against Dallas and Cleveland? I don't think anybody would have seen it coming. And the reality is they're 2-2. Like nothing's been settled here.
The Commanders are saying,
yes, they're 2-2, and these losses are hard. They're all hard. The Green Bay one was hard. All of these, we all feel them. They're hard, but they're 2-2. It's September. There's a real. They're not 0-4. There's a long way to go here, and I wouldn't even describe it that they're in a hole they can't get out of. They're far from anything like that.
Yeah, and I don't know, one of the things too, like I think back to that 2012 season, Fletch, and like some of the adversity early in the year, because what were we, 3-6 or something going into the bye week? Is that right? Do you remember that?
When you went on the run with Robert.
Yeah,
right?
3-6. 3-6.
Yeah.
A lot of that taught the coaching staff, taught the players, like the level of detail that would be required to be good and win against good football teams. And so like it didn't feel good, but we did a lot of self-reflection. We learned a lot, and we were ultimately able to like become something more than the sum of our parts because of the adversity we faced. So I'm not saying, again, they're in this disaster hole, but sometimes like Fletch can speak to this better than me because he played for 16 years, but sometimes those losses, man, they make the learning that much more acute and that much more specific, and so you're not going to forget it the next time.
Oh, you definitely don't. And even just think about this. Even if had we won that game, we're 3-1.
Yeah.
Still got so much more football left. And we feel better. We feel better about booth review, and Logan will have his hat on, not have the belt, be giving it out. But we still be just 3-1, need to go win a ball game against the LA Chargers. And that's the beauty of this game is you get an opportunity now. At some point, you're going to run out of opportunities. But with DQ and the way they run their operation, the coaches, the players, and the accountability, I'm 1,000% convinced that we will get our ball correct. We will be a really good football team in every facet, in every phase of the football field.
And it's so funny. Team. And it's so funny. How many times have you seen a 3-1 team like melt? Melt through the midseason and not figure it out, miss the playoff. It did like this is so early. So it depends. I think to Fletch's point, like I trust this staff. I trust this organization that they're going to be like, this is a learning moment and we will get better. Just like they came out of the Green Bay game and were better against Las Vegas. I think this is the same type of thing. How do we get better moving forward?
But the team that they're playing this weekend is 3-1. They just lost their second tackle.
That's crazy.
Of the summer. I don't think Joe Alt's going to, who knows? I don't know what exactly his type, but Rashawn Slater's out for the year. Joe Alt just got hurt in New York yesterday. Najee Harris is already out for the year. So they're dealing with injuries too, like everybody else. They're 3-1 right now. People looked at them like they see the hot start. You know what division they're in. Things change.
Yeah.
Like things really, for everybody, things change. And in fact, yesterday, name the person who thought they were going to lose to the Giants. You know, like things can change very quickly.
How about
here.
the Baltimore Ravens, man?
Yes. The Ravens are 1-3.
That was not on my bingo card coming into the season, like 1-3. Like,
now, granted, they've played the Lions, Bills, and Chiefs. But they got two of them on the road. Okay, so they've had as hard a schedule as anybody.
They got thumped by the Chiefs, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not what I would have expected from that team. But again, like, that applies to them too.
Yeah.
A lot of football still left to go, and people want to crown and light people on fire at this time of year. And we still got a lot of game, a lot of opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, a week ago everybody had the Colts in the Super Bowl, so right. So and then they lost.
Yes,
right. So we do have a long way to go. It's 2-2. All right, everybody. Hopefully next week we'll be doing a victorious one after Los Angeles
with the hat and the belt.
We'll all be tired doing it as well. All right, first West Coast trip of the year next week. That'll do it for the Booth Review. We'll see you next time. Booth Review was filmed at the Big Bear AI Command Center studio. Big Bear AI offers mission-ready AI for a rapidly evolving world, proudly protecting the Washington Commanders and its fans.